Happy New Year's, Eshet Alston and the Hottest Live Radio. We're going to do sort of a combo cast, so to speak. We're going to do a update on So You Think You Know the Book of Revelation, and so that's going to be part of our format. But we're also going to do So You Think You Know the Law, and Fred's going to be giving us a briefing on some issues that have come up in our research. And as I said, Happy New Year. We're going into 2017, having come through the perils of 2016. And yes, I did say perils of 2016. This was a very perilous year. I mean, think of all the things we've had happen in this year on American soil. I'm not going to mention each terroristic incident, but there have been several on American soil under this Obama nation that will soon be coming to an end. I've gotten some feedback from my use of the term Obama nation. I had some church people explain to me that sounds a lot like abomination that appears in the Bible. And you know what I said? You're correct. It does. And we have been the abomination for the last 8 years, where you have had a prospect of men in women's bathroom because that day they felt like a woman. I do want to do a little quick commentary before I switch over to Fred. There was a vote in the UN. The U.S. abstained. It was against Israel. Some of my blogs on Blog Talk identified that I'm somewhat neutral on Israel from a political standpoint and a domestic standpoint. But nevertheless, this was unprecedented. Barack Hussein Obama. It has been said you don't stab a friend in the back. You don't stab a friend in the front. You don't stab a friend anywhere. You don't stab your friends. The idea that you don't stab your friends in the back, you don't stab your friends anywhere. So the idea that one of the original members of the Security Council, United States, Soviet Union, and China, and we abstain, which means that the rest of the world gets to do what they want. I'm not being a proponent of Israel necessarily, but I am saying that what Barack Hussein Obama and John Kerry did was just plain wrong. That was just plain wrong. And it was sneaky. That's why I've been referring to him as the American Pharaoh. And wouldn't his actions at this time of Hanukkah identify that I just might be right? Now, I'm going to turn this mic over to my good buddy Frederick Bowden. And he's going to do a briefing for the Hottest Live Radio audience. But again, in case I didn't stress it enough, Happy New Year 2017. Frederick, are you ready to do your briefing?
Yes, sir. How you doing? This is Fred Bowden, coming to you over the Hottest Live Radio. Last time I was on the radio, my topic was exposing the corruption in Delaware courts.
There's corruption in Delaware courts?
It's a whole lot of it going on in the Delaware courts. And I think when fraud meets fraud, it comes up with corruption. Because these judges and these lawyers are working together.
No.
Oh, yes, they are. And by law, they're really committing treason.
So you say that they are colluding together against the interests of the people?
Oh, yes.
The government and the judiciary?
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's incredible. I can't believe that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm being sarcastic, Fred.
Well, it states, it says whenever a judge acts where he or she does not have jurisdiction to act, the judge is engaged in an act or acts of treason. That's U.S. versus Will 449 U.S. 200. And the attorneys as well is knowing that the judges are crooked.
Well, Fred, I raised the issue with this audience of Judge Vaughn, a state court judge that was now elevated to the status of Supreme Court Justice, Delaware Supreme Court Justice by Markell appointment, Vaughn. What you're suggesting is he would have had a federal bond of some sort, but he was a state court judge. So if he was a state court judge, wouldn't that be, under your definition, an act of treason?
Yes, sir.
And because the parameters for his jurisdiction would have been federal. He's a state court judge. Now, my question to you is, how was he promoted to the status of a Delaware Supreme Court justice?
Yeah.
I can give you an answer. I can give you an answer. His buddy was named Jack Markell. That's my answer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Continue, Frederick.
All right. And my last thing that, we as a people have to come up against this court system, because with these judges in these courts doing fraud against the people, they always have loopholes to, how can I say, so they won't get in trouble. So they have each one of them have their backs. And with the attorneys backing them up, working with them, is just as guilty as they are, because the law says any judge or attorney who does not report the above judges for treason as required by law may themselves be guilty of misprision of treason. That's 18 U.S.C. section 2382.
So let me, in terms of your analysis, let me ask you a couple of questions that we raised on the Hottest Live Radio before. We have a situation where in terms of my teaching of paralegal studies, I use a APS method. The APS method is antecedent, precedent, and subsequent. Antecedent is your basement. Okay. Precedent would be your first floor, and your second floor would be your subsequent, after everything. And what we have is a situation where, involving that same Judge Vaughn, we have a situation involving a district court judge as well, Judge Robinson, where she colluded, like you're suggesting, with two lawyers, Oberle and Hanlon. And Hanlon, because he's not the smartest guy in the world, he continued filing his documents until the 10th of December. Is that?
That's correct.
That would be the antecedent, wouldn't it?
Yep.
Well, how can the precedent be set on the 1st of December? Because the precedent would always be after, the subsequent would always be after the precedent.
That's correct.
So we have, as a subsequent fact, audience, that something occurred on the 10th of December, and after that, according to this judge, on the 1st of December, something occurred. Is that pretty accurate? Mm-hmm. And we had two lawyers who are going along with this, Oberle and Hanlon.
That's correct.
By your definition, they should be charged with treason.
That's correct.
And this upcoming Trump administration, Justice Department, should look into this case, shouldn't they?
That's correct.
And that's what we want to expose to the Hottest Live Radio, that this is criminal behavior, that were it not for the fact that the media is not telling this story and not putting this information out there. I keep hearing this phrase in the media. The phrase they're using in the media is fake news. No, it's not fake news. The story you don't want to cover. It's a fake news media out there. It's not fake news. These stories are real. It's the unfortunate fact of the matter is that the news media is supposed to be covering these stories as a civil right that we have on doing it. Now, don't my words sound a lot like the echo of what Donald Trump was saying about the way the media covered his run for the presidency? Mm-hmm. And so, continue, Frederick.
Yes. And through all of that is where your due process still needs to be in effect. The due process clause was considered so important that it was restated twice in amendments to the Constitution in the 5th and 14th Amendment. The due process clause guarantees that the government shall not deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without the due process
and
of law.
And as you noted, since it was so important to the Constitution that it be repeated, could you repeat that for the audience?
Yes. The due process clause was considered so important that it was restated twice in the amendments to the Constitution. In the 5th and 14th Amendment, the Due Process Clause guarantees that the government shall not deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law.
And the judiciary is part of that process, aren't they?
That's correct.
So when we have a situation where you're banned from a land-grant college by federal mandate, but a state court judge bans you at the same time that you have a prototype for what the judge described as the prototype for Solyndra, we're dealing with all kinds of different... See, audience, this is scandalous material that occurred during this Obama administration that nobody's talking about except the hottest live radio. I just wanted to put that in there.
That's correct. And take it a little farther, the U.S. Supreme Court has stated that no state legislation or executive or judicial officer can war against the Constitution without violating his undertaking to support it.
And his bond and his oath.
That's correct. That's Cooper versus Aaron, 358 U.S. .178 SCT 1401. And a judge shall lose his bonding, a judge shall lose his bonding and not be bonded and shall be deemed unbondable.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
So we are actually here to kind of help people out on the laws and come against this system. I'm learning these laws, and I'm be an upcoming paralegal myself because it's too much corruption going on in these court systems that, they just taking advantage of the people, and the people don't know if you don't know your rights, that's what they will do. And again, this is what I'm going through with Robert B. Young in the Superior Court of not giving me the right of my due process. And I would take it a little farther is that is treason as well, because it says if he fails to protect the U.S. national constitution guarantees remedies of due process and the equal protection of the law of any citizens appearing in his court of law or of any citizens appearing in any court of the country in which he works, whose case may come in his attention.
Would that include Delaware?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make sure. Wasn't sure.
Yes, it is.
Wasn't sure.
So,
well, I would like to thank Fred for his briefing that he gave us in the terms of the due process requirements, in terms of the standards of the equal protection of law, and also regarding the fact that Delaware is the first state historically. It's a relatively small state geographically, but Delaware runs a lot of stuff. Delaware does. Delaware has the geographic proximity of being very close to D.C., very close to where the government functions are. But Dover also has the Dover Air Force Base. No American casualties overseas sets foot on American soil other than the Dover Air Force Base, because that's where the largest military mortuary in the country still remains, at the Dover Air Force Base. So I just thought I would throw that in. But now that we're introduced the idea of due process and equal protection of law, I want to raise the issue that I raised on this format on the Hottest Live Radio, which is the paying of reparations to black people and why it's time and why it is necessary under the current circumstances that we have. We have a president that is asserting this to be a flourishing time for American history, a flourishing time for the social upward mobility of black people. I'll buy into that, but I don't want to buy into that broke. the idea that we can have sanctuary cities and spend billions of dollars to enfranchise foreign nationals, but we can't invest that money in the black community. We invested $880 billion into the TARP, Targeted Asset Recovery Program, $880 billion. I'm not proposing anything that grandiose, but I am proposing $88 billion, 1/10 of the total amount that you already spent for Goldman Sachs and all those guys, Wells Fargo, who gave you accounts you didn't even originate on your own, and all those very corrupt businesses that we know are out there. But you gave them $880 billion. Now, I'm saying in terms of social equity, we're not worth, black people, 10% of gross to what you sent and what you paid out already. Think about our contribution. I'm wearing a Kobe Bryant throwback here. You've heard of Kobe Bryant, have you? And let me make the suggestion that if it wasn't for American sport with black people in it, you wouldn't have any American sport that is transportable internationally. You wouldn't. Why? Because the best athlete in the world is still the American black athlete. Look at your track. Look at your sports. Look at your reality. So the idea that we don't deserve social equity is nonsense when we're giving it to foreign nationals who don't even belong here. So it's past time for reparations to be paid. Now we need to discuss and debate how much. I have a dollar figure, $88 billion. 10% of what you gave in the Targeted Asset Recovery Program. And I'm going to keep talking about this until somebody listens. Hopefully this guy right here, Donald J. Trump. This is a 10-year-old reference to a seminar that he gave 10 years ago in Philadelphia. How do I know and why do I have it? Because I was there in Philadelphia to see Donald J. Trump 10 years ago. Oh, have I heard anything from him? Well, audience, you do know I discussed that I sent documents to Trump Tower and to the transition team. And remember last time I was on, I was somewhat upset, about his audience with Kanye West, but yet and still people who voted for him like me, who are black, haven't heard anything. I still haven't. And you'll know when I do, because I'll tell you. And I haven't heard anything yet. Notice I say yet. I'm still positive and optimistic about my prospects. I'd like to thank God, though, of all the things I'm thankful for this year, that this year is now coming to an end, because this was a very trying year for not only me, but family members. And so I just want to thank God for making it through 2016. 2017, by my observation, is going to be a very challenging year. With Barack Hussein Obama setting up the new president, making threats to the Soviets and everybody, he has less than a month. If he was going to do all these things he was talking about doing now, he's had 8 years to do it, and he hasn't done any of it. Now, within 30 days of him being out the White House, he has all these things to do, including stabbing Israel in the back. I tell you what, I hate to be somebody that he really has it in for this last 30 days, because you're going to be in some serious mess around Barack Hussein Obama. And that's pretty well my summation of this calendar year, 2016. It was, I filed a lot of paperwork. I had some success in the legal filings that I made. I'm still waiting to hear something from the Court of Appeals, although I've written them. The last time I wrote them, fairly recently, it was in, what was it? It was December the 7th. That would be December the 7th. I want to share this with you, audience, because remember, we were talking about corruption and how the system really works. What I sent is I'll read it to you in particular what it says. It's a pro se appellant Eshet Alston service filing and of the certificate of a filing of a service of process. Be advised and take particular notice of 2 associated reference filing before the Court of Appeals jurisdiction. Currently, The first is a set of noted appellees are described in the context of the appeal naming Governor Jack Markell and other corrupt parties implicated in a fraudulent conduct that are in violation of, in particular, the Delaware Constitution of 1897. That's case number 162166. And then a copy of these filings, there's two of them. I have one also involving the administrative office of the court. That's 162165, regarding Eshet Alston's admin notice of filing was achieved by sending filing these documents to the various court of appeals for the Third Circuit. Joseph Hamlin was sent a copy. Charles Oberly was sent a copy. His associate was sent a copy. Kanisha Ringgold was sent a copy. Daniel Griffith, a White, Ford, and Taylor was sent a copy. Everybody was sent a copy. That was my Christmas present for my Christmas present for them for this year. Let me know when we are. And it's a memorandum of materially relevant understandings. Be advised, specifically Judge Greenaway. Let me explain the process, audience. Currently, I'm in front of a panel of 3 judges. The judges are Judges Greenaway, Garth, and Chigaris. They had dismissed my filing, but I found a flaw in their loophole, like my brother Fred said. And so I demanded re-argument, and I found out that they had to give me a re-argument because they made some errors. So now these 3 judges now have to review their review of their paperwork in the context of apps, antecedent, precedent, and subsequent. And they're trying to figure out how they're going to make December the 10th come before December the 1st. So they're really having a hard time up there at the Court of Appeals, trying to make this one fit. But I used the term Donald Trump used in my documentation. The term he used was the fixes it in describing the Court of Appeal for the Third Circuit. That's why I haven't heard it. So, audience, I'm sharing this with you so you can know these things. What the case numbers are. Case number 162165 and case number 162166, Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. I just wanted to share that. I've talked to some attorneys out there who I know listen to this program. And what we have here, attorneys who are listening, is a very simple matter for you well-educated attorneys. You cannot have a precedent set where the antecedent on December the 10th is replaced by a subsequent event on the 1st. That is impossible. It is called a legal incongruency, and I win, you lose. In this case, my win would be worth $970 million. So me winning this outright is just not going to happen. Unless things change. And things just might change. But I'm just stating the facts out here for the audience. That were this to be fair, and were the playing field to be level, I would have my opponent, 2 well-known attorneys, in an unwinnable situation before 3 judges at the Court of Appeal for the Third Circuit. Let me give you their names again. Judge Greenaway, Judge Chigaris, and Judge Garth, Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit. And this case is worth, like I said, $970 million. And you say, well, how can somebody get a case filed for that much? They just gave the Iranians billions of dollars. So you can get that kind of settlement in cases. They just gave the Iranians billions of dollars. Okay. So, my thing is, you hire a lawyer. Your lawyer is supposed to protect you from lawsuits and whatnot, and from, I hate to say it like that, and from people like me out here in the system. Because I don't care who you are in this system, federal court or not, I can find a way to get you in court and keep you there. I've proven that with the situation that I currently have in court now. All I want out of this is a fair, equitable settlement. But what's fair in a $970 million lawsuit when I can prove that the intellectual property you stole was worth more than what I'm suing for? Solyndra was worth $980 million, not $70. That's why I sued for less. And I can prove that according to this judge's testimony, Shepard preceded Solyndra, and Solyndra didn't exist. It was a fraud to rip you off. Who who was you? You was the taxpayer. They took your money and you got nothing for it. What did I get? I got the knowledge of knowing how much my idea is worth, not to build it at Delaware State University, where I was banned by the same racist judge, Terry Vaughn, so that I would not be there to be a competition for the fraud they committed. And as Fred said, as an act of treason. No bond, no oath, it's an act of treason. So, I think I've earned my money. I think I've earned being interviewed, myself and my brother here, Fred, by CNN, by BET, by all the alphabets out there. But right now, we are exclusively on the hottest live radio. The most ironic thing that could happen in this circumstance would be if we blow up like they say in Hollywood, like we blow up, and we still don't give them any interviews. Why? Because when we were not well known, they didn't want to hear us. Then when we get well known, we don't want to hear them. That would be a good way of doing it, wouldn't it, Frederick?
Yes, sir.
So basically, we're looking at the year in summary. This last year of Obama's administration was probably his most abysmal. If you consider what happened in terms of the domestic threats in Florida and elsewhere, it was not the best of times, and some would argue that it was close to, in some views, the worst of times. And that's basically my summation for the hottest live radio at the end of this year, 2016. I think that we made some progress towards the end, ultimately having reparations paid. I think I do have some people who are listening to that argument. It's a very basic argument. We have equity here. We have social and domestic equity here. Equity is the context of what we've earned but haven't gotten paid for. Although it's earned, it is still not compensated for. And yet and still you're bringing in foreign nationals, you're bringing in criminal elements, you're bringing in people in Chicago, you idiot Rahm Emanuel, where 700 of your citizens have been shot and killed, and you're telling me about how safe your city is. For who? For who? I mean, who is your city safe for? Rahm Emanuel, you hear me? Who is your city safe for? For the criminal element that has no legal right to be here in the first place. That's who you're making it safe for. Now, if that doesn't sound like an idiot, I don't know what is or what does. So that's part of what we're here to do. We're here to make sure that the dialogue with the community stays consistent. We are a community. The black, disenfranchised, marginalized community is nevertheless a community. We are just as diverse, just as intelligent, just as knowledgeable as any other community out there. It's just we don't get the opportunity. Now, why is that? Well, we don't have media options like Oprah. Oh, that's right, we do have Oprah Winfrey. Oh, that's right, we do. So we have actually black people who are in a position of power to give us the audience to be heard that still don't hear us. So it's not the white man that's not hearing us. It's nobody's not hearing us. That would include us not hearing us. Oh, that's right. I did hear Michelle Obama. She redefined the dictionary. What did she redefine? We now have no hope. So if you're black out there and you thought you had hope, Michelle took it away from you. Took it all away from you. When Barack leaves the White House or the Rainbow House or whatever, because part of the time was rainbow colors. But when he leaves, all hope leaves with him. That's hilarious, Michelle Obama. That's really funny. The black culture in this country that has survived slavery, survived Jim Crow, has no hope, and it's dependent on you and your husband? Oh, please. What an absurd notion for the great culture of black people that we're all dependent on you and your husband. I had to get that off my chest. Just had to get that off my chest. So that is all I have for this New Year's week on the last Wednesday of 2016. No better place to be with my partner, Fred. Fred has really learned this paralegal stuff to the point where he's scaring some people. You know you're learning your trade in this town this Dover, Delaware town, when you start putting paperwork out there like Fred has been, and they scaring people. Aren't you scaring a few people? We're not going to mention them on the we're not going to mention them on the air right at this point, but you are scaring people, aren't you, Frederick?
Yes, sir.
And we have to, because the only way we know that we get an effect from some of these so-called high-ranked lawyers and administrative people in the judicial system is when we get a reaction from them. And we do get a reaction from them. So do you have anything that you'd like to say in closing, Frederick? You have the mic.
Yes, I would just like to say.
I got one. I would be remiss without thanking Skip on the hottest live radio. Okay, he's the producer here, and he is the man, Skip. So I want to thank on the air on the hottest live radio, Skip.
Yes, I want to thank everybody for listening and supporting us. Again, my topic was exposing the corruption in Delaware court system and making sure that you get your due process that you deserve. And the reason why I say you need your due process, the last time I was on the radio, I spoke about the courts where they denied my case in the, I'm trying to say the right words, but the passing of my wife, which was neglecting on Pinnacle Rehabilitation's side, and from a falling accident, because after her falling, a day or two later, she ends up passing. Well, after I got all my paperwork into the courts, done everything legally that I was supposed to do correctly, well, again, Judge Young.
Barely in time, because your lawyer held your paperwork with a 2-year statute. Let me get this filled upon in. With a 2-year statute, his lawyer held his paperwork for 23 months. He had 24 months, and his lawyer held his paperwork and told him at the end of the 30 days. Oh, you only have till 30 days. Isn't that what he did, Fred? Mm-hmm. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that happens in this judicial system. And this is the kind of way these lawyers do. The idea that a lawyer will hold his case for that long and then abandon him within 30 days of having no other options at all. That's just terrible. I'm sorry, Fred. Go ahead.
Thank you. And again, they didn't give me my due process. And again, I said that Judge Robert Young dismissed my case because subsequently the lawyers for Pinnacle somehow came before antecedent and president, which I don't understand. If I hand-delivered mine at 1:15 and they subsequently came in at 3:26.
It's the word you use, Frederick. The word is, well, there's 2 words. One of them is fraud. Fraud is concealment of material facts and misrepresentation of material facts and corruption. The process of those actions or non-actions. What we're dealing with is a systemic pattern of conduct, not just in your case or my case, but in all the cases where color is at issue. And black folks who come into the courtroom need to understand that. When you come into the courtroom, you don't have a strike against you. You got the whole game against you, not a strike.
That's correct. And that's why I said we as a people need to stand up against this court system, against this fraud and treason that they're doing. And something's got to be done. And by all means, with the help of God, I'm going to continue to fight this system and get the right process done that needs to be done to help everybody that's in this system that's being victimized, you know, because it's Delaware. They say Delaware is the first state. That's correct, as they say. And it's the only state that changed very little. Mm-hmm. And that's pretty much all I have to say. And again, I want to thank my man Skip on the hottest live radio for giving me this opportunity to speak let people know what's going on with this court system, how they are biased against the people. Again, not giving you the right due process, and that's my main thing. Due process is a requirement by law. They got to give at the minimum. At the minimum, they got to give it to you.
Absolute requirement. Equal protection of the law, due process of law are absolute requirements that they ignore routinely.
Yes. And if you don't know, that's how they get you. But again, Judge Young think he got me. But it's not over. I'm coming. I'm not scared. I'm coming against the system. And I'm coming by force. And again, I thank you for listening. Have a good day.
And the force he's talking about, let me make it clear, is knowledge. Knowledge is true power. The more you know, the more you know. Knowledge is true power. We are pushing reparations because that is what a culture of people who have been here to build the country deserve. It's as simple as that. To those out there who don't want to talk about this, we need to be talking about this. And this appeal is to the Oprah Winfreys out there, to the media that is dominated by black people out there. How come you aren't talking about this? Because you're rich and the rest of your disenfranchised brothers and sisters aren't? So let's get this dialogue out here. Reparations 2017. And Happy New Year 2017. On the hottest live radio.